Good day, everyone. So for today's reporting, we're gonna tackle about glaciers and glaciation. So in the book, this is the chapter 13. But before that, we're gonna introduce ourselves. My name is April Labin Canovas.
My name is Crystal Nijulason.
And now we're gonna start our report. So first, what are glaciers? Glaciers are large, long-lasting mass of ice formed on land that moves under its own weight. And sa sunod na ko nga mga report ay sa next slide kay mabawa na to ang anong part ni siya sa meaning. And also, glaciers along with oceans, lakes, and rivers are part of the Earth's hydrosphere. Siguro makabalo naman tanong kung unsay meaning sa hydrosphere. Kay since elementary, magitakaw naman po na ang kanang hydrosphere. Pero ako lagi po niingon na hydrosphere includes all the waters on the Earth's surface such as oceans, lakes, rivers, and etc. kanang mga bodies of water. Additionally, glaciers along with sea ice, glaciers are a portion of hydrosphere known as the cryosphere. So, ang kanilang cryosphere kay other term ni siya sa kanang meaning kanang frozen water bali mura siya ice nga na mao ni siya ang cryosphere. And about 75% of the world's supply of fresh water are locked up as a glacial ice. Next slide. So in shorter words, kanang glaciers are a body of ice and it is formed on land and recrystallization of snow. So basically, more gipon siya ice. So mo ni siya ang forma sa glaciers. If search ninyo niya sa Google, kay mo ni siya ang magawas nga pictures sa mga glaciers. And murag kabalo naman punta nga kuan mo na siya. So, di ba ta ma-curious kung giunsa pag-perform ang giunsa pag-form ang glaciers? Like, how does glaciers form? Glaciers developed as snow is compacted or crystallized first into firn and then glacial ice. So, ang firn dai kay kanang halfway between snow and ice. Like, dili kay siya kuan kanang snow, di ba? Smooth man na siya. Like, pwede ta makahimo og balls or whatever ning ana ng mga snowflakes. And ice kay kanang yun na siya kanang gahi. So, ang firn kay kanang naapa sa tunga-tunga ana. And then after ana kay mo siya forma na siya glacial ice. A glacier can only form where more snow accumulates during the winter than melts away during the spring and summer. So ang Canadian glacier kanang mura gani siya kanang snow nya nagka-ice siya sa na other snow na sad niya mo ice na sad siya mo nang mo ang iyang size kay mo dako siya kanang mura gani siya like magpundok-pundok nga snow nga ni melt ni gahi ni melt ni gahi mo na siya. Next slide. So before that mo tackle ta about the kinds of glaciers. Ang Canadian glaciers kay makita rin nato siya sa mga polar regions kanang like mga high altitude mountain ranges and at high altitudes in all continents except Australia. For example, kaning mga sa Antarctica makita ni natong glaciers, sa Greenland, sa Alaska, sa the Andes, Himalayas, and the Alps. Mao na siya ang mga common places nga naay glaciers ta makita. Kasi ni-search niyo sa Google kay nana siya daghan dito. So now, let's talk about the kinds of glaciers. First kind of glaciers is the valley glaciers. Valley glaciers is also called as the alpine glaciers or the mountain glaciers. Mao siya ang mga common names sa valley glaciers. Ang uban kay tawagon nila mountain glaciers, ang uban pud kay alpine glaciers. So, glacier confined to a mountain valley valley glacier is confined to a mountain valley or an interconnected system of mountain valleys. So, ang kani siyang valley glaciers kay di ba no makakita man ta og lakes, kanang mga rivers. Ninga na ang porma sa valley glaciers kanang more siya flow of water if water siya, pero ang kani siya kay kanang in the form of ice lang siya or kanang snow. Ninga na. So, next. As you can see, mo ni siya ang kaning ang valley glaciers mo ni siyang pasabot nga mura siya flow, mura siya lakes or rivers kanang namgod siya sa tunga-tunga niya, mura siya kung sa water pa siya kay mura siya go flow, or since kanang kwan man siya kanang snow man siya or ice kanang natungod-tungod gani, so gani siya for. Next kind is the continental glaciers. Ang continental glaciers is also known as ice sheets. It is a glacier that covers a vast area, at least 50,000 kilometers squared, and is not confined by topography. So, ang kaning continental glaciers kay dako ni siya, dako yun ni siya, kanang makover ganing area. Liman ka 50,000 kilometers squared, so dako din siya. And sa kaninga meaning kay it is not confined by topography. Kay nga naman kay ang kaning continental glaciers manggod, they are vast ice sheets, so dako jud siya. And ang kanang mga land beneath them kay matabunan gyud mao nang dili siya confined by topography, kay tungod sa kadako niya dili na makita kung unsa to ang mga nasa iyang lawom, if of unsa to siya forma ato, so mao na siya. Next is mao ni siya ang forma sa continental glaciers. As you can see, dako jud kay siya, like mga dako kayo. Next slide. Last kind of glaciers is the ice cap. It is a dome-shaped mass of glacial ice that covers less than 50,000 kilometers squared, usually covering highland areas. So, ang kani siya kay gamay-gamay sa continental glaciers, bali kayo dako yang yung scope sa ice or sa glacier, pero kung sad ka nang makita lagid gapon kung unsay forma sa natin siya topography, kay makita man ng forma kung unsay yung nakabirang gani, kay di man gid kay siya dako, same sa continental glaciers. Next, kamo ni siya nga ni siya, although makita nato nga murag taas kay siya, pero like dili gid siya same sa continental nga, like dako wide jud kayo ang yang range. Ano siya makita na ko nga pictures sa Google. So next is, what is glaciation? Glaciation is a term used to indicate all glacial activity, including the origin, expansion, and retreat of glaciers as ice, as well as their impact on Earth's surface. So glaciation is the process where large areas of land become covered by glaciers. In other words, it is the process where large areas of land become covered by. It includes how glaciers begin, yun sa pag-form, how they grow bigger, and how they melt or move away. So, mao na siya kung unsa yun sa pagdako sa glacier, yun sa pag-move kay kani magong glaciers bisan ice ni siya kay nani siya movement, and we're gonna tackle it din na next slide. So, mao na siya makaasta, how do glaciers move? So, next. So, glaciers move by basal sliding and internal flow. So, ang other word aning basal sliding is basal slip. It is a movement of a glacier over its bed, facilitated by a layer of meltwater that act as lubricant. So, sabutan niya, ang ubos niya kay mo-melt gani. So, di ba, if ang ice, no, for example, ng water sa ubos, if imo na siya ipa-slide kay mo slide na siya, grabe kay naman siya kanang murag melt water sa ubos, so mo na siya ang basal sliding or basal slip. Ang next nga kanang unsaon siya pag-move kay kaning internal flow. Other terms sa kaning internal flow kay kaning static deformation. So, mo na siya. Ang kaning internal flow kay it is caused by overwhelming pressure of gravity and its own weight. So, sa kabugaton na siya og sa gravity, bali if batan ako na kay siya nya kanang murag dili na gani makaya sa below, manang move siya. Na karon makaasta, how fast do glaciers move? So glaciers move at a wide range of speeds, from a few centimeters per day over 30 meters per day, depending on factors like slope, size, and meltwater. While some move slowly, others like Greenland's Jacob-Chaban Glacier can move up to 30 meters a day or more, with the fastest glaciers potentially moving 50 meters a day or faster. So, nagay yung mga specific cases if unsay kanang movement sa kaning glaciers. Kuan siya, like slope, kung panitan steep kayo siya, bali, kung grabe gud ka steep, more kusog-kusog gud ata ang iyang movement niya. Ang size niya, kung bigger siya, para sa itong ganina, sa katong internal flow nga meaning, weight niya, if bugat siya, kay paspas gud ang iyang kanang movement. And sa meltwater pod katong sa basal slip kanang if daghan like over ay daghan gud kayo ang melt sa ubos niya, murag mo grabe gid paspas yang movement. So now we're gonna tackle about the erosion and sediment transport by glaciers. So glacial erosion. Glaciers are capable of great erosion and sediment transport. Glaciers erode the land primarily in two ways. First, kay kaning plucking, which means a lifting of rocks, and then abrasion, rocks within the ice acting like sandpaper to smooth and polish the surface below. So, kaning glacier erosion kay nani siya yung mga ma-form nga like kaning kuan ganing landforms if mahitabo kanina siya. Ang first kaning erosional features kay kaning glacial through. So, ang kamporma niya kay kanang U-shaped valley created as a glacier moves through a mountain valley. Bali mo U-shaped siya. And next is this truncated spurs. So, ang forma po niya kay the ends of mountain ridges that get cut off by glacier, leaving steep edges. So, bali, kuan ka ng naay maporma nga murag like slope, nga na. And then, kanisang hanging valleys. Small valleys that are higher than the main U-shaped valley, often waterfalls form here. So, murag like murag gani siya matunga nga na niya. Then mo na ang usay di ba nay melting sa, so nay mo produce nga kuan kanang murag falls na kanang sa flow sa water. And then next is this arets. It is a sharp narrow ridges between two glacial valleys. Next is the horns. It's a sharp pyramid-like peaks formed when glaciers erode all sides of a mountain. Kani siya kay kanang mga forma pyramid sa kay bawo man taon sa forma sa pyramid. Kuan siya kanang ganing murag mahimong talinis tingana. And then lastly is the circus. So it is a bowl-shaped hollows where glaciers begin to form. So kani siya mura siya like mura gyapon siya U-shape ngani nya mo nang ang uban kay since na yung mga kansa kanang ay kanang mga nanasay snow, so bali maka-form na po siya other glaciers. So in summary, sa kaning erosion kay glaciers erode the land by blocking and scraping rocks. They transport the rocks as they move. And then when glaciers melt, they leave unique landforms like U-shaped valleys, sharp peaks, and bowl-shaped basins. And next kanang magtakaw nami sa kaning continental glaciers and erosional landforms. And the one who will be tackling this is Crystal. So I'll give the stage to Crystal now.
Thank you so much, April. So, we'll be tackling about continental glaciers and erosional landforms. So, continental glaciers erode the land into smooth, rounded surfaces by scraping away soil and rock. Unlike valley glaciers that create sharp, rugged features, continental glaciers produce gentle, subdued landscapes. In places like the Canadian Shield, these glaciers remove most soil and sediment, exposing polished and striated bedrock. The result is an area with many lakes, swamps, poor drainage, and little to no soil, known as ice-scored plains. Similar features also appear in the northern United States from Maine to Minnesota. So, ang continental glaciers na kay this shape kanang gi-shape ni siya sa land by scraping away soil and rock. So, nag-create ni siya og smooth, rounded nga landscape instead of sharp na mo na ang dimension nga kanang instead daw of sharp rugged features like valley glaciers na in areas like Canadian Shield and parts of northern US kay this left exposed bedrock na poor drainage and many lake swamps forming what are called ice-cored plains. So, arita sa deposits of glaciers. So, natay mga list diri kung sa itong angay i-define para sa mga deposition aning glaciers. So, the first one is define the terms glacial drift. So, the glacial drift is a general term for all the materials carried and deposited by a glacier or by meltwater from a glacier. So, define the two types of glacial drift. So, naatay ang glacial drift kay usually subdivided siya into two major categories which is the unstratified drift na gitawag natong till o kaning till kay this is a sediment that is unsorted nga kaning unsorted ga contain ni siya kanang mixture of all particle sizes. So kani siya, this is a sediment that is unsorted and unstratified. So the word unstratified mo ni siyang lax layers na kani daw kay because it is deposited directly from the glacier ice without being reworked by water. Mo na siya ang till. So arita sa stratified drift mo ni siya ang sediment nga naay sorted o stratified kay kani siya deposited di siya sa glacial meltwater kaning running water. So define the different types of moraines and ground recessional, terminal, lateral, and medial form. So maguna ta sa moraine end. So kaning end moraine or moraine end kani siya, this is a ridge of debris. So, na siya, till, which is gitawag natin till, kay, kani siya, deposited ni siya sa front, deposited ni siya sa front, sa glacier, when the ice is stationary for a period of time. So, kani kay, it marks a position where the glacier paused during its retreat or advance. Muna siya ang moraine end. So, sa ground moraine, it is a blank-like layer of till deposited beneath a glacier as it moves. So, kani siya ma-form ni siya if when the ice is melt, it forms when the ice melts and drops sediment directly under it. So, katong isa kay paman to siya kanang ang end moraine kay naka-position daw siya if ang glacier kay naka-pause daw during its retreat or advance. Well, kani ang ground moraine kay na-form ni siya if ma-melt ang ice na-drop ang sediment directly under ani na producing gently rolling landscape. So, muna ang ground moraine. While ang recessional moraine kay it is a type of end moraine formed behind the terminal moraine. So, muna siya when a glacier briefly stops during its retreat. Ang terminal moraine kay muna siya ang furthest end moraine na deposited by a glacier. Glacier marks the maximum extent of the glacier's advance. So, kani siya, it forms at the glacier's snout when the glacier is stable at its furthest point. Ang lateral moraine kay it is a ridge of debris deposited along the side of a glacier. Katong isa kay further, katong isa kay nasa front. Tendency na siya along the side of a glacier. So, it forms from a rock and soil that fall onto the glacier from valley walls and are carried along the glacier's edges. So, arita sa medial form. So, ang medial form, which is medial moraine, kay kuan siya, a ridge of debris formed in the middle of a glacier, na siya sa middle. So, where two lateral moraines merge as two tributary glaciers join. So, kani siya naka-appear niya siya as dark stripe running down the glacier center. So, arita sa define a drumlin. So, let's define what is a drumlin. So, ang drumlin daw is a smooth oval-shaped hill made of glacial till formed beneath a moving glacier. Drumlins have a steep blunt end facing the direction of the ice came from and a gentle tapered end. So, nagapoint ni siya direction sa glacier nga naga-move. Na, in simple terms, kay ang drumlin, kay kuan ni siya, it is a streamlined hill shaped by the flow of a glacier. Discuss the two hypotheses for the formation of drumlins. So, naay two main hypotheses nga naga-explain kung giun sa pag-form ng drumlins. So, both ni sila nga naga-involve ng glaciers, pero naga-differ sila kung what shapes the streamlined hills. So, first, let's tackle the first one. So, the lodgement, which is mo ni ang till deposition hypothesis. So, kani siya kay mo ni siya ang hypothesis na nag-suggest nga ang drumlins kuno kay form by deposition beneath a glacier. So, ang iyang material ani kay naga-deposit ni siya o naga-molded under a moving glacier, while ang the subglacial streamlining, which is the erosion, kay form ni siya mainly by erosion, not material deposited man to siya from under a moving glacier. While kani siya kay shape ni siya by erosion of sediment beneath fast-moving ice. So, Aritas define the four major glacial landforms that are composed of stratified drift and formed by running water. So, natay four ka major glacial landforms na composed of stratified drift and formed by running water. So, the first one is the outwash plain. So, kani siya a broad, gently sloping area of sorted and layered sand and gravel deposited by meltwater streams flowing away from the glacial front. So, ma-form ni siya when meltwater loses energy and spreads out, dropping its sediments. While esker kay a long winding ridge of stratified sand and gravel deposited by meltwater flowing in tunnels beneath the glacier. So, if ma-melt ang ice, the stream kuno na di-deposit kay muna ang ma-left as a raised ridge. So, kani ang kami, which is kami, a steep-sided hill or mound of sorted sediments deposited by meltwater in depressions or openings on the glacier surface. So, when the ice melts, the material collapses onto the landscape, forming a kame. Lastly, the kame terrace, a flat-top ridge of stratified drift deposited by meltwater flowing between the side of a valley glacier and the valley wall. So, when the glacier melts away, the sediment remains as a terrace along the valley side. So, lastly, let's explain the significance of barbs and dropstones. So, first, ato i-define kung unsa na ang barb. So, ang barbs kay muni siya ang annual layers of sediment. Usually, ani kay mga clay o slit na deposited ni siya sa glacial lakes. light layers in summer and dark layers in winters. So atong ikuan ang significance aning verbs. So natay kuan diri na geological calendar kay because each pair of layers represents 1 year. Verbs allow scientists to determine the exact age of sediments similar to tree rings. Yan ikaduha kay reconstructing past climates. So kani siya if thick summer layers mo ni siya mga warm periods with more meltwater, while the thin summer layers kay mo ni siya mga cooler years with less melting. Nya kaning verbs kay kanang record ni siya nga year to year climate changes. Na ikatulo kay matrack nato ang glacier retreat. Nya as glaciers melt back, barb layers build outward from the ice margin. Na maka-help ni siya na ma-map na to how quickly glaciers retreated. Yeah. While the drop stones, ato sa i-define kung what is the drop stones. So, ang drop stones kuno kay this is a large isolated rocks na naga-fall into fine-grained lake or ocean sediments from melting icebergs or like floating ice. Ang significance niya kay natay evidence of glacial activity in the past. So mga drop stones kay nag-indicate na siya nga kana nga area kay once na siya nga na-influence by iceberg or ice sheets. Na kaduha kay kan siya indicators ni siya sa transportation by ice. So kani kay their presence shows that the rock was carried far from its original location by floating ice, which later melted and dropped it. Nya ikatulo kay natay kanang makuan ang significance niya kay climatic interpretation. So since ang iceberg man kay only form man na siya in cold climates, no. So ang dropstones kay kanang gihelp tani niya para ma-identify ang mga past glacial or mga cold water conditions na in regions now temperate or tropical. So in summary, verbs kay important ni siya for precise dating and reconstructing past climates, while the drop stones are important for identifying glacial influence and ice transport in the geological record. So, arita sa what causes ice ages. So, ang ice ages kuno kay ice ages are influenced by changes in Earth's orbit as described by the Milankovitch theory. So, variations in the planet's tilt, shape of orbit, and wobble affect how much solar energy Earth receives, triggering shifts between glacial and interglacial periods. Scientists also proposed additional explanations for short-term climate changes, including volcanic activity, changes in solar output, and shifts in ocean currents. So, in short, ang Milankovitch theory kay gi-explain ni siya kung how long term climate changes like ice ages are kanang ang ice ages kuno kay driven ni siya by shifts sa atong Earth's orbit o ang tilt na kanang which change how much sunlight the planet receives. So however, ang scientists daw also recognize that shorter term climate changes can be caused by other factors such as volcanic eruptions, variations daw sa sun's energy, o kanang changes in ocean circulation. So, next. So, arita sa Milankovitch theory. So, the Milankovitch theory states that long-term climate changes, including the alternation of ice changes, the Milankovitch theory daw April! Prel! 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 Yeah, again. So, the Milankovitch theory. The Milankovitch theory states that long-term climate changes, including the alternation of ice ages and warmer interglacial periods, are driven by small but significant variation in Earth's orbit and rotation. These variations occur in three main ways: the changes in the shape of Earth's orbit, the eccentricity, shifts in the tilt of Earth's axis, obliquity, and the slow wobbling of Earth's axis precession. So each cycle alters the amount and distribution of solar energy reaching Earth, especially in the higher latitudes. When combined, these orbital changes can intensify or reduce seasonal contrast, influencing the buildup or melting of ice sheets. This theory helps explain the timing of glacial cycles during the Pleistocene. So in simple terms, kay ang Milankovitch theory daw kay gi-explain siya the Milankovitch theory explains that ice ages and warm periods are influenced by natural changes in Earth's orbit and axis. Kani siya nga small shift kay nag-affect niya siya kung how much sunlight ang ma-reach different parts of the planet. So especially katong mga near sa poles, kani siya, when these changes combine, they can encourage either the growth or the melting of ice sheets. This helps scientists understand why glacial cycles happen during the Pleistocene. So, geofocus, glaciers, and global warming. So, global warming refers to the long-term rise in Earth's average temperature, largely caused by increased greenhouse gases from human activities like burning fossil fuels. One clear indicator of this warming is the behavior of glaciers. Many are thinning, retreating, or disappearing worldwide. Glacial ice loss is especially severe in Greenland, Antarctica, the Arctic, and high mountain regions such as the Rockies, the Himalayas, and Africa's Mount Kilimanjaro. Although a few glaciers show temporary growth due to heavy snowfall, the global trend strongly points to warming temperatures and more warm days. Scientists note that shrinking glaciers reflect changes in snowfall and temperature, making them good indicators of climate change. While some short-term climatic shifts can be influenced by solar variations or volcanic eruptions, evidence shows that these factors do not explain long-term global warming observed today. So in summary, kay ang global warming kay mainly caused din siya sa human activities nga nag-release o greenhouse gases, and one of the strongest sign kay kanang warming sa worldwide glacier. So most glaciers kay from the Arctic to high mountain ranges na are shrinking, that temperatures are rising. Although gamay ra ang glaciers na mo-grow temporarily due to snowfall, pero overall kay ang global pattern kuno kay gi-confirm niya ang long-term melting na ang mga scientists kay gina-consider na ang glaciers kuno kay useful ni siya nga indicator sa ato ang climate change o kanang gina-show niya ang evidence nga human caused na ang global warming, not natural factors like volcanoes or solar changes na ga-drive nga trend. That's all.
That's what Glaciers and Glaciation Chapter 13 is all about.